Hey everyone, it's Pastor Lori. I'm recording this on Election Day. So by the time you see it, who knows what will be going on in our country? Who knows how the election will have played out or if we will have definitive answers. But know that today I am praying for you, especially if you are feeling very anxious or that there's so much out of our control. I'm praying for you. And my heart today, in the midst of this season of many unknowns, and especially in this day of unknowns, my heart has led me to First Kings. It may not be the place that you go to when you need to find a comforting word in Scripture, but I want to talk for a couple minutes about the prophet Elijah. And I'm going to be reading from 1 Kings chapter 19, a few of the verses. And this is when Elijah flees from Jezebel because Jezebel wants to kill him. And so he flees into the wilderness and he falls asleep under a tree. And this is after he has asked God to take his life because Jezebel's out to kill him. And God gives him sustenance and wakes him up multiple times from his sleep to give him sustenance so that he can continue on the long journey to the Mount of God at Horeb. And so here is where we will pick up reading. This is 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 9 and following. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." God said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks into pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go." And it continues on with the Lord's instructions for what Elijah is supposed to do. And I was drawn to this because over the past few months, I've heard a lot of people say things like, well, you can't be a Christian if you're a Republican, or you can't be a Christian if you're a Democrat. I've seen a lot of people be very zealous in their religion and their politics during this season. And people feel very strongly, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to feel strongly about your political opinions. I think it's important to have them and to vote accordingly. But I have seen a lot of people who are very zealous for their religious preferences and their particular party and their ideals. And so that's what led me to think about Elijah, because I want to remind us, and again, who knows how today's going to turn out? I don't know. I want to remind us that there will be, well, I don't need to remind you that there will be a lot of noise. There will be a lot of noise. There will be a lot of coverage and a lot of things that play out as have been happening over the past few weeks. A lot of things will be very loud and will grab your attention. But I want to remind you that oftentimes God shows up in ways that are very unexpected, and we have to be looking and listening. And listening involves not shouting. We have to be able to tune things out to hear where God is in the midst of what's going on. Because regardless of who wins, God is still seeking to do God's work in the world. Please hear that. God is not done with God's work of redeeming and restoring all of creation. And our situation, while seems like it is so far beyond redemption in terms of how we are treating one another and how we are managing in our country right now, that is not true. So regardless of the outcome, I know it's easy to say and much harder to do. I want you to make sure, regardless of the outcome, to listen for the still small voice of God. And God will be saying things and moving and doing things as God has always done. And God will be continuing God's work of redemption and restoration. So listen for God. And make sure that you don't just assume that the loudest voice is God's voice, because the story reminds us that oftentimes God shows up in unexpected and very quiet ways. I love you all. I miss you. I hope you are safe and well.